right, welcome everyone. I know it just hit 3 o'clock and we'll have folks still getting on, but we do have a lot of content today, so we're excited to dive in and really appreciate folks making the time. I know this is a really busy time of year, and I know each of you is doing a tremendous amount on behalf of students in your communities, so just really grateful that you took the time to join and hopefully get lots of good information today. My name is Lily Locks, and I'm our Deputy Commissioner of School Programs at the agency. For those of you who have been on the superintendent calls, we've shared intermittent updates about Texas Home Learning 3.0 and how we got to where we are today. But we're really going to focus in on a couple tools specifically about Texas Home Learning 3.0 today. So if you are new to the overall project, there's a few resources on the COVID site. When you click on instructional continuity, you'll see a button that says Texas Home Learning that give the full story. We're not going to go through the full backstory of Texas Home Learning 3.0, but I did want to address a couple of the key components of it that are crucial to our conversation today. So we have had an incredible opportunity to talk to so many of you and know that there's a lot of great work happening across the state. And so in talking to districts, what we've heard is that some of the main concerns and challenges that folks have already tackled and continue to tackle are the ones we have listed here. We know educators are being asked to do more than ever in this environment, and figuring out how to toggle between a regular in-person classroom, a remote setting, and a hybrid setting just adds to that complexity. And certainly then figuring out how to do all of that with constrained resources makes it even more challenging. So Texas Home Learning 3.0 is designed to be something for teachers and districts that helps provide support for what is an unprecedented setting and year. And certainly a use case that many of you, I assume all of you had not contemplated when you thought about what you needed in your materials to be able to do that switch between remote and in-classroom environment. So we also wanted to make sure that this is freely available. This is absolutely optional. This is not something that you need to use, and you'll start to get an idea today, hopefully, of if this is something that can help address some of these challenges that you are facing as a district. For those of you who are familiar with the 1.0 and 2.0, the spring and summer iterations, we just want to continue to emphasize that 3.0 has some shared characteristics and then a couple key differences. So like 1.0 and 2.0, this is a crisis response. So this is certainly not something, not an ideal timeline in terms of materials, not something that we would typically be looking at doing. But given where we are in this COVID crisis, setting up these materials, again, is designed to support those challenges. Unlike 1.0 and 2.0, the 3.0 is designed to be a year-long set and again, have this inclusion of an LMS, which I'll talk a little bit more about in just a moment. This version is really designed for teachers. So the 1.0 and 2.0 materials were designed to be easy for parents and students at home, but these materials will look a lot more like instructional materials that you typically work with in your classroom and are certainly designed with skilled educators as the audience. Again, how you use it, completely up to you. And you'll have lots of options in terms of what works best for your system that we'll talk about as we go today as well. The idea is that it's able to integrate and help fit into some of the picture that you're already looking at for your particular context. Again, the diversity of Texas is amazing, and it does mean that folks' scenarios are very different depending on all sorts of things in your district, from size to strategic investment. So all of this completely optional. And again, we hope to answer some questions today about if it's a good fit for your particular context. But no expectation that you use any of this. It's just an optional tool designed to help. So with that, I gave a little bit of a voiceover to this already, but there's three major components when we think about Texas Home Learning that you can use all together, you can use in part, or in any combination. So the learning management system is the one that we have announced first, and I'll get to that again just in a moment. But this learning management system, again, we know folks have in many cases already made an investment with the technology, but wanted to make sure that there was a free statewide option for folks to be able to use during this time. The professional development supports both the technology and the content, and again, thinks about this implementation in both classroom and remote settings. We're going to really not touch on the professional development aspect at all today. Instead, we're going to focus entirely on this instructional materials piece. And talk a little bit more about what we mean and really dive into what some of these prototypes look like. So with that, I did want to give a quick note on the technology piece before we dive into the instructional materials. Many of you may already know, but we have negotiated a statewide license for Schoology for the entire state for 2 years. So any interested LEA has access, again, completely optional, just if it's useful. But if you are interested in using Schoology, even next year, we just ask that you're able to sign up and start using by March 1st of 2021. And there's some more information on Schoology and its use cases on our Texas Home Learning page on the COVID site that'll just help you again consider what some of these features are. We know many folks have already cobbled together different systems to make this work in the spring and summer. And this can present an opportunity to bring those things together and help them work more seamlessly. But there's a lot of ability to customize and think about how does this work with the technology pieces that you already have in your district. And again, is this a value add for the needs that you currently have? So I think those are the high points on the Schoology piece, but you can already, this is all released and you're able to start sign up. We know some folks are already in the pipeline signing up. We currently have 240 districts that have gotten all the way to an executed contract since we announced, and we have several hundred more in the pipeline. But please, if you are not in that pipeline and you're interested in being so, there's certainly room, and again, wanting to make sure that folks get that support and are able to sign up. So thank you all for that. So the bulk of today's call, like I mentioned, is really on this instructional material piece. When we talk about what these instructional materials are, we're not talking about any off-the-shelf curriculum that already exists. This current moment of crisis is really different than anything instructional materials have been built for in the past. So these Texas Home Learning 3.0 resources are being developed specifically for Texas schools in this new learning environment. This means that these materials undergo a rigorous review process, not only to confirm alignment with TEKS and quality standards, but to make sure that Texas teachers think that they're valuable and have an opportunity to make sure that they're a product that really is effective for Texas students. We're constantly balancing this quality piece with this time piece, so there will also be an opportunity to continue to make changes to these materials into the future, informed by Texas teachers and stakeholders into future iterations of these. These are materials that, again, are designed to be flexible for this environment, and they're designed to support all learners. So you'll hear today how we're thinking about that and some of the features that make these particularly valuable for all learners. But please know that as we talk about these and show you prototypes today, these are commercial grade products that are being built for this particular setting, instance, and state. So with that, the process to actually get to these materials is what you see here on the left. So the curricular resources are being developed and set up for schools in this new learning environment. Once the initial development occurs, Texas teachers have an opportunity to be involved in the review and help support feedback and ensuring that these are really a quality set of instructional resources. That also, again, as I mentioned, leads to the opportunity for continuous improvement. Once approved, that's when we get to this release stage, and materials are available through Schoology or a standalone system or with any existing LMS that your district is currently using. So we can answer more specific questions about that as it is of interest, but you certainly do not need to use Schoology to use any of these instructional materials. And you also certainly can use Schoology if you are one of the districts that is looking to use that platform. So even after release, we know that's not the end, and that's not necessarily everything that you or your teachers need to be successful with a set of instructional materials. So we'll have continued information on this professional development and support, and we'll have product-specific webinars that help you understand a particular grade and subject that, again, can be relevant for district staff or for teachers as we go throughout the year. In this, I'm going to go through a little bit of these first ones in more detail. So we're going to start with the develop piece and start to talk about what this looks like. You may have seen a version of this slide in one of those THL overview presentations, but you'll see here on the left, today we're really talking about math, K-12, and college prep math and English. So again, we're going to show some prototypes of math and dive into the college prep math and English tools. And we're going to look at all of these tools with the lens of the 6 features on the right. So these 6 features are really the ones that we identified in conjunction with stakeholders as being the most important pieces for instructional materials in this moment. And on this slide, you'll see those same 6 components and the value that we know that they can provide for educators. So certainly we know this is something that folks are spending a lot of time doing and thinking about, and that your teachers are spending a lot of time and energy. Many of you may have central office staff, they're also doing the same thing. But these are meant to be full sets of TEKS-aligned unit plans and lesson plans that teachers can adopt or adapt. They also include formative and summative assessments to make sure that it's easy for teachers to see what students know. Saves teachers that time and energy, especially by making it easy to shift between in-person and remote instruction to have that built-in flexibility for all the uncertainties of this year. And the ongoing embedded progress monitoring is another crucial piece. Most importantly, this adaptive software is also important for all students and makes sure that students receive the right content at the right time for their individual learning needs. I will just briefly add, we will be posting this slide deck and recording after this, but we don't currently have it up. So thank you to those who have asked, and we'll make sure to get this information out. And if you have other folks who weren't able to join today, we'll also make sure that they're able to get this information. So with that, we do want to start getting into the math preview in particular. And we're going to start with a little bit of just an overview of these 6 components as they look with the math prototype. So hopefully y'all are going to be able to hear this video once I give it a start, and we're going to just dive into what these 6 components look like in action.
There are 6 elements of Texas Home Learning 3.0 instructional resources. We're excited to share how Texas Home Learning 3.0 delivers these elements by previewing some examples of instructional materials. The first element includes both unit plans and daily lesson plans aligned to Texas standards. This includes clearly articulated, coherent, TEKS-aligned units with daily lesson plans that teachers can use regardless of whether learning happens on campus or at home. Instruction with this curriculum resource is supported by smart software that mirrors a human.
Sorry, I got a note that something is wrong with the mic.
Coach, providing contextual hints, immediate feedback, and interactive examples to give students a completely personalized learning experience. And teachers and leaders get the data they need to guide instruction and planning. And all of this is integrated in your district's LMS for easy access. The second element involves comprehensive support for all stakeholders, teachers, students, and family alike. Teachers get real-time data and actionable insights on what to do next, even when students are learning remotely. At a glance, teachers can see what students are working on in the software, including their activity and productivity levels, and which skills they've mastered or might be still struggling with. This insight helps teachers focus on who needs help the most right in the moment. Students and their families see a real-time view of their learning through the progress meter. This is a quick way to view skill improvements as the colors change color to show them what they've mastered and what they might still need to work on. Students and families also get real-time hints for lesson assignments from a conversational chat bot accessible on any device, so students never get stuck when working from home. And that brings us to the third element of Texas Home Learning 3.0, built-in progress monitoring. In this product, progress monitoring shows teachers what students know and don't know at a granular skill level, giving teachers a more efficient path to targeted instruction. Teachers access assessment quality data at any time, viewing reports on standards mastery, skills mastery, and even a prediction of student performance. This depth of data empowers teachers to make important instructional decisions. The fourth element of Texas Home Learning 3.0 is all about assessment. Formative and summative assessment data provides teachers the information they need to help students stay on track this year. Understanding the scope of last year's learning loss may feel like an enormous task, but imagine putting this information in your teacher's hands, making their lives easier. Specifically, the way that this product delivers assessment needs is through ongoing, comprehensive formative assessment in the software and talk the talks, exit tickets to demonstrate understanding at the end of every lesson. Insights like these help teachers know where students are in their learning progression. The fifth element is digital format with printing capability. We know that access to technology presents a challenge in remote learning, so materials can be easily printed. Teachers no longer have to create different materials for 2 different settings, as all materials are accessible in the LMS and may also be downloaded for printing. Lastly, and probably most importantly, is ensuring that our learning experiences are accessible for all learners. Texas Home Learning 3.0 materials meet accessibility requirements for all learners. This particular product is compliant with the National Instructional Materials Accessibility Standard and Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. All digital supports will be provided in both English and Spanish. The software also has built-in accessibility supports like text-to-speech. And this resource for Texas Home Learning 3.0 will help provide teachers with what they need to support all students. With these customized, TEKS-aligned smart tools for Texas, teachers can focus on community, collaboration, connection, and personalization, and students can thrive. There are
All right.
six.
Thank you all so much, and thank you for the great questions in the chat and confirming that you were able to hear the video. We'll get to a couple of these questions in just a moment, and then we'll try to make sure we're able to answer a few others as we go. With this, I should have at the beginning introduced Andrew Hodge, who is here and who will also be presenting part of today. So Andrew's going to go ahead and take us through a prototype to start to show us what this actually could look like in practice. And Andrew, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing so you're able to do that.
Thank you so much, Lillian. Thanks for the overview. And thank you, most importantly, to the folks that are on this call, taking time out of your busy day. I believe, Lily, you may be the host, and if you could give me an opportunity to share, that would be helpful. There we go. Thank you so much. So thank you all again for taking the time out of your incredibly busy day. It's such an incredibly busy moment of the school year, not just any school year, an incredibly unique school year as well. As Lily mentioned earlier, this is an unprecedented situation in public education, unprecedented opportunity we have. And with Texas Home Learning Materials, before we jump into this particular clip, this sample, I want to make sure that folks understand that we are working alongside vendors to actually develop these lessons for this school year and for this new learning environment, and specifically for Texas teachers and Texas tools. So what we're able to have today is a prototype of what one of these lessons will look like. We've tried to call it a prototype in many different ways, but we want to be very clear that this is a sample of what a coming lesson would look like. And I just want to take the next few minutes or so to walk through this sample so y'all can get a sense of, beyond the kind of messaging that we've given you, what will be actually available to teachers and to students to work on this year. So we have this lesson. This is analyzing and sorting graphs. So probably an Algebra 1 lesson. And I think back to my time as a high school math teacher, and putting on that hat to my students is exciting to me because of a few things. One reason is that I have the lesson and I didn't have to scrap together the materials as I did when I was a teacher to be able to use. And two, this gives me some guidance on what is the time that I should take to complete this lesson. What are the activities? And then I think something that's so core to a lot of lessons, which is, what is the essential ideas of this lesson? What should students take away after successfully completing this lesson? That's very important. One thing to highlight right now is that this is a lesson. This is a part of a broader unit. It's a part of a plan, part of a broader scope and sequence and inside of one unit within what will be released to y'all in the coming weeks and to Texas schools in the coming weeks. So this is just an example of a lesson within that, but using that frame of the 6 components of these curricular, these instructional materials, just want to go through a few different highlights of this that align directly. So if I'm thinking about my classroom, students are going to be starting, whether it's in the actual classroom or if it's online, and they'll need something to do. They'll need a way to warm up their brains, to activate some prior knowledge. And with this lesson, that's already included. So you can imagine students coming into the classroom or logging online, and perhaps this is actually asynchronous, where your teacher assigns this material outside of a synchronous time where they're interacting. And then the student is asked to essentially activate prior knowledge and start to develop some questions of, why can you think of a reason why each one of these 4 graphs doesn't belong with the other 3? And then write it down and give some information. So this will obviously help the students to activate some prior knowledge, give them some higher level of Bloom's thinking, but then also is a way for them to get ready for that school day, and then also a way that a teacher can have that lens into student progress going into that lesson. So that's the engaged piece there. One thing I do want to call out here is also, hey, this lesson asks the student to actually post the thoughts or post that response in Google Classroom or Flipgrid. So a way that a teacher can actually see, hey, this is what our students know, and that can be easily adapted for in-person or online settings. Speaking back to the learning management system, you get a lot of questions about Google Classroom, Flipgrid. Those, I would think of them as those can plug into your learning management system. So then you can actually track everything through your learning management system, which can help out with organization on the back end, communication to different folks. So that's the warm-up, this engage as it's called here in this sample lesson. And then that's followed by an actual video that is what I would call direct instruction. And I would think about this in the classroom as an opportunity for one of two things. One is a teacher could use this as kind of a flipped model to assign this before class, or a teacher could use this as their direct instruction. So I want to go back to my sharing, and I'm going to try this. Similar to earlier, can you just give me a heads up if you can hear this starting now?
Welcome to A Sort of Sorts, Analyzing and Sorting Graphs. You have used graphs to analyze relationships between independent and dependent quantities. As you go through this lesson, think about whether or not certain types of relationships share any characteristics.
So as you see the narrators going through the lesson,
looking for patterns can help when sorting and comparing graphs. Some graphs show vertical symmetry.
Hitting those essential questions that were listed at the beginning of the lesson, and then actually explaining the lesson to students. This can act as a great supplement for the teacher-driven instruction. It can also act as a great way for students to get that first instruction, and the teacher can differentiate that instruction based on the individual student needs. We'll go ahead and just do a snippet of this video for 30 seconds.
We've looked at patterns and used those patterns to compare graphs. How can these patterns help us when sorting? Here we have 5 graphs. Our job is to sort the graphs into different categories based on our own rationale. When looking at these 5 graphs, I immediately noticed that they each have a vertical axis of symmetry, so I can use that rationale to keep them in one group. Now, if we take a closer look, we can actually create more than just one group here. Graphs C, E, and J can be placed in a group.
So I hope you'll get a general sense of that direct instruction that is delivered by this video. I could watch that for hours as a former math teacher. Definitely gets me excited. That was one of my favorite lessons. One thing that's nice about that video is that it also introduces the activity that the students will participate in next as a way for them to demonstrate their understanding. So you can see this group activity. This group activity explains what the students will need to do and then gives them the opportunity to actually do it. One other cool thing to highlight here is that it has a way for teachers to progress monitor. There's a way for teachers to progress monitor the results of this activity. But what I did want to highlight here is that this can be adaptable for print or online settings. So think about the different learners and different situations that you all have in the field. This can be applied to both. So specifically, just playing through this lesson real quick, it asks, hey, sort these graphs. So a student's actually going through the graphs, looking at different graphs, and it's asking you to call out, where do you see some similar graphs? And I actually see graphs Q and K, and I'm going to group them together. And this activity asks me to place them on a slide and then write what I notice about them. And I remember from earlier in algebra that these are actually both called parabolas. So I can write that down. I could share it with my teachers. I could collaborate with my fellow students, do a variety of things to really stretch my understanding and make sure that the teacher knows as well that I do understand that problem. There's another activity included as well. This could be the next day of activities, or this could be an extension activity for students. I'm going to skip activity 2.1 as much as it pains me, and go to a great way that is built into these lessons to allow teachers to see what the students know and and spark reflection across students. So this is just a simple Google form that that asks, hey, what is the name of your partner? What is the name of the student and the partner? And then encourages them to work together to come up with answers to the questions that are listed. And lastly, as we all know, it's important to know, did our students master the lesson? And give our opportunities for students for extra practice. And so there's also assignments that are embedded within within each lesson. Shout out to writing here, even in math, we can and we should be writing. And then there is ample practice for each student, each opportunity. And then lastly, a way for a teacher to know how did the student do? Are there misconceptions that the teacher needs to clear up, or is there a is there a misconception the teacher needs to clear up, or is there something that a teacher needs to highlight as an example of a really strong effort? And that's what a teacher could do after they get emailed a picture of that assignment. So I will stop there, and I'm going to throw it back over to Lily, and then we'll be whenever Lily, I think you hit a stopping point. We'll be answering any questions folks have.
Thank you so much, Andrew, and thank you again to folks for the great questions. So just one of the main ones while I'm getting this the deck back up. You do not need to have Google Classroom. You do not need to have Schoology. So again, we're trying to show options of how it is flexible, and again, some of the print pieces. But you should be able to use this really no matter what setup you have. And so again, we're happy to answer more specific questions for folks, and we'll have more on a release dates in a slide coming up in just a moment. So let me try to make sure, sorry, talking and sharing my screen at the same time. So we'll have more information on that. But again, you should be able to use these no matter what your setup is. They're definitely designed to be flexible across these different environments. So with that, I'm going to go a little bit quickly through these features since they were covered both in the video and in Andrew's demo. But again, you'll have full TEKS aligned plans that go with it. You'll have the assessment tools that accompany the materials, built-in teacher and student supports, and again, places actually where families can get a look at progress as well. You have this digital format, but really it also allows for printing and allows for you to have the same materials in any of those hybrid settings. Robust progress monitoring to help really know what students know, and customized and adaptable for all learners. So one of the other questions I see in the chat is there a cost associated? There is no cost associated. There was another great question about professional development. And so if you're interested in a particular grade and product, we'll have more information there, but there is a wide range of options for folks. We do want to provide quite a bit of support for those who want it, but it's not necessarily a requirement to use any of it. So absolutely, folks can integrate this with their existing LMS. It is not required that you use Schoology, again, just to emphasize. But these are indeed, this is as we mentioned at the top, a prototype of what the math product looks like. So with that, we mentioned sort of the development process that this is currently undergoing. And the next step is to get to this review. So we are hopeful that some of you on this call know some folks or may have some others who are interested in actually being a part of this process throughout the year. We know folks are overloaded and busy, but we also know some folks are genuinely interested or would want to do this or consider using materials anyway. So again, we're going to post this and put this out more broadly, but if you do know someone who you think would be a great content expert to look at a particular grade and subject, we'd love to get more teachers involved and ask you to please nominate them by emailing Texas Home Learning at tea.texas.gov with that teacher nominee in the subject. And we'll make sure that that information gets into the chat as well. So just finally, I know this is the key question for this. We shared this overall release picture on an earlier call with superintendents this summer, and we've released the LMS as we've mentioned. This exact timeline is going to look different for grade bands and subjects. So today we're talking about math, but the math product is going to have much more specific information. So by grade band, you'll be able to get a detailed walkthrough of what it looks like and what it means for that product for K5. 6-12 on Tuesday and K5 on Wednesday. And then the initial materials released, which includes some of the overview materials you need and the beginning lessons. Again, we know some folks have started school, but lessons to kick off will be available 8/31. So this again is the materials release for the K-12 math, and we'll continue to make sure that these updates are posted on Texas Home Learning So again, you'll have links to be able to get to how you can access them, and again, think about what platform is best for you. So lots more still coming through the superintendent listserv and texasHomeLearning.org, but math products are coming 8/31 for K-12. We know folks are eager for other subjects, and we don't have firm dates on those today, but we are planning to share them as quickly as possible, and we will continue to have those updates just as soon as we can. So it'll be more than just a scope and sequence. It will also include initial lessons, and it will include unit overviews and that sort, but it will not be a full year at that point, but you'll see, as you saw in this previous slide with the timeline, we hope that you'll have the full year before Christmas. So with that, I know we still have a lot, and I want to make sure we leave time for the College Bridge, but please, we'll continue to try to field questions in the chat, and we'll make sure that we also follow up with FAQs and others after. And if you do have a specific question that you want us to answer, please include your email address in the chat when you chat us as well. So with that, I do want to switch to the college prep materials. These actually, again, have a different release date, and I will start by letting you know that they are already released. So Texas 3.0 College Prep Math and College Prep English actually really get to a specific use case above and beyond what we've been thinking about for Texas home learning. So many of you may have seen the overview again of the Texas College Bridge and this thought about these courses, but we know that some of the other challenges that you're dealing with are disparities in equity in college, career, and military readiness, disruptions to spring 2020 instruction, and constantly changing college admission requirements as a result of COVID. So the Texas College Bridge includes instructional materials, just like we've been talking about with Texas Home Learning 3.0, and it includes online college and career supports and tools to hopefully make that something that translates that student progress into having the information and the tools that they need to translate that into college. So we're going to actually, again, dive into some samples of these course materials, but I again want to emphasize these are at no cost. The college prep course, again, has the opportunity to improve a district accountability rating, should that be a case. But really, the instructional materials are something for you to take a look at, again, as a self-paced, competency-based course that can help with this in-person, hybrid, remote setting and provides personalized math and ELA instruction. I'm going to come back to the college prep course and the MOU after we take a look at the materials, but just want to start that framing on the front end. So I'm going to actually walk you through a demo of the EdReady Math today, but you actually can go ahead and use this same login information. So you can get to this at texascollegebridge.org, or you can use the information on the screen, which again, we can put in the chat to be able to actually go in and take a math demo or an English demo. This one is, as we mentioned, already released. So EdReady Math is the college prep math instructional materials, and EdReady English is that for English. Both are part of the NROC partnership, which has a strong research base for over a decade and particularly effective with low-income students. So I'm going to first quick walk you through these same components, and then we're going to dive into the demo. One of the things I mentioned, there's a few things that are a little bit different about the college prep math and English. And the first one is it's not a TEKS-based course, so it's not TEKS aligned in that sense. However, again, with the research base and with, we're going to talk about the MOU in more detail, it does have a detailed breakdown of the units and topics available so that you're able to go with an IAG partner and determine if these feel like the right topics for that course. And again, the research base for them is pretty strong. So here you see there's still robust plans. Students get individualized learning paths based on their diagnostic, and they're able to follow along with all of these different pieces. So the assessment practices within it are really crucial to how it works. You'll even see if you go in for the demo, it'll ask you to take a placement test in order to determine your unique study path. So the assessment tools are used throughout to determine if students have mastered concepts and to make sure that students are getting the right content to practice as they go. So while that's happening, both teachers and students have access to information about how they're doing on this journey, and students get additional checklists and information that relates both to the course and helps them think about, again, some of the advising pieces and the what does this actually mean even after the course piece. We already mentioned, but again, this is something that you can use for on-campus instruction or remote home learning. And so it's designed to be flexible in these different settings and something that helps respond to the current moment and again, all of the different scenarios that you're planning for. We've a little touched on progress monitoring already, but this is a huge component of the value here that you're able to see, and students are able to see their progress and what they've captured. When I take you through the demo in a moment, and when you look at the screenshot you see here, there's a lot of red and a lot of blanks. I will let you know that this is my personal demo, and I clicked skip a lot on questions to get you here for today. So this is not necessarily a real study path, but what happens when someone is going through the demo piece. But it is giving you a sense of the interface and what sort of information is available to you and to the student. And again, perhaps most importantly, there's a lot of great accessibility options and supports in Spanish to, again, ensure that these materials are designed to support all learners and helping make sure that all students are able to be successful. So with that, I'm going to attempt to show you all a demo of what this looks like. And we're going to, again, bear with the sound for a moment. So let me do a new share briefly. Okay, so you'll see on the Texas College Bridge website, it again has the info, but we're actually going to dive right into the demo piece. And hopefully you're seeing my screen as I click into the math demo. So we're going to go ahead and go to my goal. And again, as you see, I mentioned it was my real snapshot when we took a look at this for the demo. When I go in, I see the key topics and I see my status on those topics, and I can hover over it to find out a little bit more about what that means. So the yellow here is that it needs review. The red means I'm not ready. The white means it has not been assessed. And then you can start to see I'm doing well. I haven't actually reached this mastery point on any of the things in this current stage 1. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and view my study path. Now, overall, I'm trying to get to this 90 and make sure that I've mastered the topics in the unit. From my placement test, which again was genuinely me clicking skip question, I came out at 28. So I have most of the learning to do and many of the topics, but the course actually goes ahead and sets up what that looks like for me and walks me through what are the topics that I need to study to be successful within this unit. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at place value and names for whole numbers, again, just to get a sense of the content that's available in here and what this looks like. So this particular place value and names for whole numbers unit doesn't have a warm-up, but you can see that that's a standard practice within these different pieces. You'll also see that I can go ahead and enable screen reader support, or I can go ahead and get help from the glossary right away. So I'm going to jump straight to the presentation on this one. And I am hopeful the sound is going to work on this, but I realize I'm not sure that I checked that button. One moment. Okay, just briefly again to get a sense of some of the direct instruction here.
How much money would you rather make in a month? This amount or this amount? Of the two amounts, of course you'd rather make this amount. But why? Well, all numbers are made up of one or more digits. A digit is one of the symbols 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. If you look at the digits in both of these numbers, you'll notice that they have the same digits. But the way the digits are arranged is very different.
Okay, y'all get the idea, but I again wanted to show the closed captioning and also again show the Spanish emphasis here. So that is our presentation piece. So once we're done with the presentation, we can go ahead and get into some worked examples. And here again, I'm just going to have us take a look at it to get a sense of what students have access to.
Find the place value of 3 in 4,356. Now, whenever I think about place value, and the more you do practice problems on this, it'll become a little bit of second nature. But whenever I see a problem like this, I like to expand out what 4,356 really is. So let me rewrite the number. So if I were to write, and I'll write it in different colors. So 4,356 is equal to, and just think about how I just said it. It is equal to 4,000 plus 300 plus 300 plus 50 plus 50 plus 6. And you can come up with that just based on how we say.
Okay, so again, just to give folks an idea. So On this next one, you get into the topic text. Again, here you can toggle, here's English, you can toggle to the Spanish at the top. And when you go back, there's also then the crucial part where you get to the practice piece. So on this one, actually, because I had started the practice, it didn't give you the information, but I actually want to make sure I'm showing you some of the language on this. So again, students are able to go through and they're able to do this multiple times as they need, but the practice part is really crucial in terms of getting folks ready. I'm going to go ahead and not do this part on the actual demo, but it will give students information and shows them also how the answer can be worked out, whether they got it right or if they're having a challenge, they have an option to click on that. So in each of these pieces, it then allows them to go ahead and review, but they can return to their learning path even before they finish that piece. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my study path to again get an overview of where I'm at. So I still have some work to do here. I've made some progress going through it, but again, I haven't answered enough questions to actually have moved the status here in terms of how we're going forward. So again, this was a very rough intro, but you'll see I have quite a lot of work to do before it's appropriate for me to take the unit test. And so I would do that, make sure that I have that studying and move my indicator from not ready before I go ahead and get to that piece. So I'm going to go ahead back to our presentation and move to the next part. A couple of folks have asked some really great questions about the MOU, and I want to make sure we get to that piece of it. So that said, again, any of you are welcome to use this information and explore as a student today, and you can go ahead and explore the English demo as well. So both of these will work and you can go ahead and explore on your own. So that said, as many folks know, this college prep course is something that is developed in conjunction with an IHE partner, and that's not necessarily as easy as it sounds. So we have the statutory reference here on the bottom of the screen, and the course itself, when you have that agreement in place with an IHE, allows for that exemption from developmental education for 24 months following the date the student graduates from high school. So it's essential that this MOU be established in order for this to be something that has real value for the student in terms of the transfer to higher ed. There's a couple ways to do this. So many of you likely already have MOUs with an IHE currently around this course. So on the left, you see that there's an option to just modify or amend your current MOU to incorporate this course, should you and the IHE agree that these instructional materials meet your shared upon bar and work in this environment. So if you determine that this curriculum works for that, and again, there's more information on texascollegebridge.org, you can go ahead and amend that MOU to have this course count for the college prep math or college prep English language arts. There's another option as well, which is the statewide Texas College Bridge MOU. So in this case, the ISD and the IHE both review the materials. And again, there's an opportunity to sign on to the Texas College Bridge MOU in order to have that shared MOU and have more access. So there's a lot more information about this on the site, and I may take folks to the site just briefly if we have time. But we've already had quite a few partners sign on, and there again continues to be opportunity for more IHE partners to sign on in terms of this MOU. So the MOU is available at texascollegebridge.org. And these are the partners as of August 17th. Okay. So this is currently accepting enrollment. So as we mentioned, the math K-12 is coming out 8/31, but this is currently available for enrollment. And again, you can go through both those demos. We'll make sure before we jump off to make sure that those keys for the demos are in the chat so folks are able to access them. But if you have seniors who are taking these HB5 college prep courses now, you can go ahead and get them signed up if this is something that works for you and your IHE, or if you want to sign on to the statewide MOU. This information is also on the Texas College Bridge site, but you see here in red that the fall option 2 are the best dates that we have there currently. And if you decide to go this route, you'll get all sorts of support in terms of helping to figure out roster and all those different pieces that are necessary to get the course started. There's also multiple windows in the fall, and there are windows in the spring. So again, this is something available throughout the year and not something that's just immediately now or never. So the next parts are all around implementation, and you'll see some pieces here around determine that plan. There's already an implementation guide and a few other pieces to support you in this, and we'll take a look at that in just a moment. Before we do that, I did want to highlight the interest form that's already on the website. So if you do know that this is something you're interested in, this interest form is already on texascollegebridge.org, and you can go ahead and fill this out if it's of interest. If not, please keep exploring around. So the last parts I want to highlight for the college prep math and English is this piece around, again, advising resources, and then the piece around implementation supports. So these you'll see will launch on 8/24. So the college and career supports are coming soon. And these are designed to be seamlessly navigated from that student dashboard that I was just showing in the demo. And the units are aligned to college and career preparation milestones. The educator resources are also coming with this. And these have been designed by Texas OnCourse, and again are aligned to student resources and milestones. So they're appropriate for educators who are either new to post-secondary advising or those who are seeking to update and refresh their advising knowledge, especially as they continue to be updated as a result of COVID. So lastly here, again, want to emphasize for the college prep math and English, these pieces are ready to go. So participation, data sharing, requirements, and requirements on agreements are all available on the website already. Districts have resources there as well. You'll see a district page that'll help think about designing a local implementation plan. And you see the implementation guide is one of the tools down below. And then there's already on-demand teacher training that will help, again, with flexibility in this new environment. So that's your overview of the college prep math and English. And again, we'll try to make sure that demo gets in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and share a little bit in terms of these next steps, and then there's a few great questions that we have some time to revisit. So we just went through math, again, K-12 today, and the College Bridge, the college prep math and English. The websites, again, are both here, and you certainly can access Texas College Bridge from Texas Home Learning. And then in terms of next steps for math, we've had some folks ask, but please go ahead and mark your calendars. That material is released on 8/31. We'll have a large announcement about where you can go to access that, but we'll make sure that everything is also easy to find from the Texas Home Learning site. So again, you'll have the option to use it within Schoology, you'll have the option to use it outside of Schoology, and we'll share lots more information about that as we go. And actually, I think someone on my team just let me know that webinars are actually the 25th and the 26th. So please excuse the typo on this slide. We'll fix it before we send it out, but the previous slide was correct about when those two product webinars are. Additionally, if you do know a teacher or school district leader who is interested in being a part of these materials and helping review, please do go ahead and send their name and email address with teacher nominee. For College Bridge, you can go ahead and access the information immediately at texascollegebridge.org. There also is an email address there, though again, if you email Texas Home Learning, we'll make sure it gets to the right place. And you can go ahead and complete the enrollment form at texascollegebridge.org. So I think Andrew just went ahead and put the right information about the product-specific webinars in the chat. And we will make sure we go ahead and get the key for the demo in the chat as well. And then we're going to go ahead and take a look at some of the questions. And apologies, I was not keeping up with them while we were going. But if you are not sticking around for questions, again, thank you so much for taking the time today, and we will continue to keep you updated, and we'll make sure that this is posted and available for you to continue to share this information with folks who are interested. Andrew,
Thanks,
you want to?
Lily, and yeah, thanks everybody for, let's give you a break, get a glass of water. Thanks everybody for the great questions and participation today. Just a few questions that I want to answer. If we're interested in 612 math, what are the steps to get started? We have Schoology now. So regardless of whether or not you have Schoology, the next step is to go to the webinar that we just threw into the chat. Two ways that we'll send out the link. One way is through the superintendent listserv. So this is the same listserv that gets the emails about the commissioner's Thursday conference calls. And then we will also post it on texasHomeLearning.org. And that's something that we will, we literally just finalized this right before this. We're moving at very fast speed, and so that's something that will be posted there shortly. One question about scope and sequence. So the webinars, I would think of this is the announcement of the product. So we'll actually be announcing the product name and then going over a few of the materials that are included with that product. And that's the webinar next week. On the 31st, the product release date, and this again is for K-5 math and 6-12 math. On that material release date, you'll actually have the scope and sequence, the first unit plan, and some lessons, a batch of lessons. We're trying to get these out as quickly as possible for folks because we know school's starting now, or perhaps a week or two ago. So we're sending out the lessons in batches for this first unit, and so you'll have access to those on 8/31. There's another question about where are those hosted. So they're going to be hosted immediately in two places, or two places, excuse me. So they will be hosted on the vendor specific webpage. They'll have a Texas landing page that talks about the product and gives some resources, but it will also include access to that. That is information that we'll include along with the materials release. In addition to that, your home base for this is texashomelearning.org, and you'll be able to go there as your one-stop shop to see the different products as we roll them out. Again, K-5 math and 6-12 math are the first ones to be rolled out over the next week and a half.
Thanks, Andrew. I'll also just start to answer a couple others as we go. So Andrew kind of just mentioned this, and I know we had a question again about all subjects. So we'll continue to announce by grade and subject more information. But when we say all completed by Christmas, we mean we're aiming for all of the materials for the year. So right now we know many of you have started school and we're behind where you'd like to be in the year. And so again, we are working to expedite and get ahead there, but we're going to share release dates by grade and content as we go. So we'll have much more detailed release dates by grade and subject as we go, but we appreciate folks continuing to join and take a look. I'd also like to know, I think I made a typo entering the key for the demo in the chat, and someone helpfully found that. So please don't use the capital E that I put in English. Please use a lowercase. And I'll add one more I'm seeing, and then hopefully Andrew's got the next one. One of the other questions was, can you give us an idea of how much time it would take an average student to complete one of the, I think the college prep courses is the question. And unfortunately, we can't give you a great idea because it really is individualized and personalized for the student. So it does depend on how the student actually does on the placement piece. But I think, again, that personalization really ensures that the students are mastering the content and have the right amount of time to dive through it. So it certainly is something that you can fit into a traditional block, or again, work with students to think about what does that look like in terms of how you're checking in on their progress monitoring. But we do expect it to vary.
So we had a few questions. One question I saw was about where is the, will each of the lessons for Texas Home Learning Curriculum be labeled with its specific TEAC that it is aligned with? I'm not sure if each individual lesson will have literally the TEAC written at the top, but the process right now and the reason why we don't have all of the instructional materials to turn over to folks right now is this being developed for this year, for Texas, for this new learning environment. And because of that, it's going through a review process, and that's the teacher nominee email you see in the bottom left, where it's going through a review of Texas teachers. We're given feedback to the publishers, and they're implementing that feedback before we release. So all of these resources are going through an extensive TEACS review and TEACS alignment process. And that will be included, if it's not included directly on the individual lesson, it'll be included on the scope and sequence unit plans, I'd imagine. Another question about how should districts using a different LMS approach integration with Texas Home Learning? This is a great question that I'll answer in two ways. One piece of the Schoology question is a district has to ask the difficult question of do we need this? It's a free opportunity in terms of cost, in terms of licenses, but as y'all know, as leaders in districts, that doesn't mean it's not a pretty substantial cost for y'all to implement it and implement it well. So if districts aren't using an LMS right now, this is a great option. If you're using an LMS right now and you're not that happy, this is a pretty good option. You should think through that. If you're using an LMS and you're very happy with it, you should probably continue using that LMS, even though that this opportunity exists. In terms of integration, again, 3 different ways that folks can get access to these instructional materials. One is through Schoology, embedded within Schoology. 2 is hosted through the vendors portal, through their landing page. That we'll get that information to y'all in these upcoming webinars. And then 3, these instructional materials are being developed such that they'll be able to integrate with whatever LMS that you have. So this would be through an LTI integration, perhaps. We've built that into what folks are developing. Somebody asked a question that I didn't know anything about a few weeks ago, but common cartridge. Yes, they're being designed with a common cartridge, at least for the Schoology integration. And if you have additional technical questions, please send them to texashomeLearning@ta.texas.gov. So somebody that so we can get our implementation team get them to give an answer for you.
Okay, Andrew. Another question I'm seeing in the chat is around alignment to the TEKS resource system, scope and sequence. And so again, this is going to vary by grade and subject, and we'll continue to have more information about where it does and doesn't align to TEKS resource system as we get into specific grades and subjects. But it is something certainly that we know folks are interested in having information on, and we'll make sure that we have that. One of the other questions is around pre-K, and so pre-K is actually holistic for all of pre-K, so it is just slightly different than the K-12, but there absolutely will be pre-K materials coming.
That's right, and my wife is a pre-K teacher, and I was a high school teacher, so I've been yelled at that this is actually integrated pre-K, so it's not all subjects pre-K, but it's integrated pre-K.
We're very glad you learned that, Andrew. It's great. All right, we'll keep reading through some of the questions and try to make sure we have answers. But again, we're really grateful for folks' time. And if we did not get to your question and you would like to make sure that we respond personally, please include your email address. And again, please don't hesitate to email us at texashomeLearning@tea.texas.gov. And many thanks. I saw one more pop in while I was giving my thanks. The college prep is available. You'll see there's still that transition into year 3 if I go back a couple slides when we post it. But there are certainly dates throughout the fall and spring for students to be able to start the college prep course. Okay. With that, thank you all again. We appreciate your time, and we will continue to share information and as we have it for each grade and subject. Thank you all.